Welcome to Brave Business Conversation. This is Cynthia Wiharji. I'll be your host until 2 p.m. We've got in the studio Keith Ledbury from Rotary Bath Avon. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Cynthia. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. We are going to talk about Rotary around the world today, and you're part of a fantastic Rotary Club supporting lots of places. And today we're going to talk about Sri Lanka. Is that right?
We are, because Bathhaven Rotary Club, we run a project at the moment, an international project that's working in Sri Lanka.
Fantastic. You'll tell us more about that. It's a great project where we hear lots about getting the people out of poverty cycles. We're going to talk about how exactly Keith and his team does that. We're going to talk about education, women empowerment. So stay with us at Brave Business Conversation. We'll have more after this.
This is Radio Bath.
Welcome back to Brave Business Conversation here with Keith Ledbury from Rotary Bath Avon.
Yeah, Bathhaven Rotary Club, yeah.
Tell me about Rotary around the world. What is that?
I chose that title for the topic today because at the end of every Rotary meeting, we raise a toast and say Rotary around the world. And maybe that sounds a bit twee to some people, but I think it has quite a deep meaning in that it makes us remember that we're part of a much bigger thing. That Rotary exists right around the world. There are Rotary clubs all over. And part of our role is to serve not just our local communities, but to try to think about the wider national community and even the global community, which is what this particular project is all about.
So, yeah, tell us more about this particular project in Sri Lanka.
Well, what happens is basically Rotary. There are three aspects. There's a social side of Rotary where you have fellowship, you get together around a meal, and you get people to come and talk to you. There is also a fundraising side where we raise funds for various charities. And then there's a service side. And when I joined Rotary about 7 years ago, I was very attracted to that side of Rotary. And one of the things that we can do is if we can join up with other clubs, we can form bigger projects. And what happened was a club called Bath West joined Bathhaven Rotary Club. And we inherited some lovely people from that club, but we also inherited links that they had with Tor and Mannheim, two Rotary clubs in France and Germany. And so because we can raise money ourselves, if we join with them, and we do every 3 years, we have an international project, and we take turns to lead that. So it was our turn to lead it, and it means that we can attract funding for ourselves. That funding is then matched by district funding. From within our country, and then Tor and Mannheim get their funding from their clubs, and it's matched by their countries as well. Amazing. And then on top of all of that, you can then apply for a global grant. So it meant that we could then have a very, very big project, which runs to about 7 million Sri Lankan rupees.
Yes.
Sri Lankan rupees always sound like big figures.
Well, it's like Indonesian rupiahs,
Yeah.
We're millionaires right after a trip to the ATM.
And in terms of money, that's about 35 to 40,000 pounds. So it equates to a very, very big project.
It's a significant amount of
significant amount of
So
money.
in Sri Lanka, tell us more. Well, first of all, I want to know a little bit about you. What's your background?
My background is I've been in education all my life, which is why I think I was attracted particularly to this project. And I was in primary education, and the last 15 years of my career, I was head teacher at Courtney Primary School in Kingswood, which is Bristol but South Gloss local education authority.
So a big passion for education. Huge
passion for education, which has continued into my retirement, really.
Yeah, and then this project in Sri Lanka attracted you because what's it all about?
It was just a note on the staff notice board that before I retired. One of a great teacher that worked for me put a notice on the notice board saying, you might be interested in this. It wasn't for me particularly, it was for anybody who might be interested in the Tea Leaf Trust. And him and his wife had been over to Sri Lanka and worked for the Tea Leaf Trust. And the Tea Leaf Trust is a charity which was signed by Tim Pear and Yasmin Shah shortly after they got married. They got married and had spent their honeymoon in Sri Lanka. And when you go somewhere, you probably realise this, when you go somewhere as a tourist, you see the surface of things. You don't always see what's going on underneath. And they were quite shocked because they did start to see what was going on underneath the lovely tourist side of Sri Lanka and found that there was a real need within the tea estates in the central district of Sri Lanka. And they went back to live there. They went back to live there and they set up initially a school that grew, and then there was another school in Warelia. And they've also set up a new school, a tiny school, in a place called Palmerston.
So what was the need? What was the need in these tea leaf?
The need is to help to break a cycle of poverty, because basically it's started from colonialism. We went out, and of course it was Ceylon then, and a lot of landowners went out, bought up land, and it's an ideal tea growing place. They set up huge tea plantations, very beautiful. They're on tiered land. It's a very, very high part of Sri Lanka, and they needed workers, and they got the workers mainly from Tamil Nadu, which is a province in India, and they were from India, more or less as slaves really. And still, they get paid very, very little, and it's mainly the women are the ones who pick the tea leaves. I've done it. It's not an easy thing to do. It's backbreaking. It's strenuous. There are leeches. There are snakes. Sorts of things. So, they get paid next to nothing, and they get paid by productivity. They've got to pick tea leaves all day long, and they're paid by the kilo. By the kilos of tea leaves that are weighed at the end of the day. I watched the weighing. It was quite easy. These women with huge sacks on their backs full of tea leaves, bringing them in to be weighed.
It's also interesting coming from also a tea growing country like Indonesia. For me, I know that when you buy tea, the more expensive tea are actually the small tips at the top. It's microscopic. It's
tiny.
To get a kilo of that is a lot of work. You just pick leaves. People might pass by a tea plantation and say, "Oh, there's lots of leaves." You just pick them all. No, you don't pick them all. You have to pick those young, small ones.
Yeah.
That's the ones that tea. If you just pick up any leaf, they're probably worth nothing, and you can't make really good tea from them. So it is a lot of work. I can vouch for that as well.
It's very, very hard work, and their living conditions. What happened? They set up what are called line houses for them. So these tea estate workers generally live in line houses. And if you think of sort of old Victorian houses, when you used to have 2 up, 2 down houses in Victorian time, they reminded me of that when I went to visit them. So they live in very poor conditions with very limited facilities. And because of the poverty, there's high incidences of alcoholism, abuse, and also Sri Lanka has the highest rate of suicide amongst young men in Asia.
Because of the poverty.
Because of the poverty, the alcoholism, the general perception that they don't have a future. They're in this cycle of poverty. How do they escape it? That's where the project comes in.
And what's the key thing that you guys have identified? If you want to escape this cycle of poverty, what is the one skill you need?
Well, the one skill you need, sadly, is being able to speak English, which is obviously a legacy from colonialism. I mean, some positive things happened from colonialism. If you talk to Sri Lankans, they do say that the infrastructure in the country is something they're grateful for. But we've left a legacy, and we have this all around the world, where English is the key international language, and it is there very much so. So if they can learn English, then they're able to get a better job. And when I say a better job, it's could be quite a menial job, even to get a job as a chambermaid in a hotel. Demands a certain level of English. That's a requirement if you're going to get that sort of job, because you've got international guests and the international language is English. So if you can prove that your level of English is good, you stand a much better chance of getting a job that will take you out of the poverty trap.
And just to give an idea to the listeners just how poor they are, even a job as a chambermaid would be higher paid than picking tea leaves, and probably less backbreaking for people there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, 80% of the families are living on less than $1 a day.
Yeah.
Which is astonishingly low, really. And at the moment, they're obviously very, very hit as well. Things in Sri Lanka are not good at the moment. They were heavily impacted by COVID because they rely heavily on the tourist industry. So, unfortunately, that took a lot of money away out of the economy. And at the moment, they don't have enough money to buy fuel, so they've got high levels of power cuts. Some power cuts of up to 15, 16 hours a day at some point. And they've also got huge inflation. So in March alone, inflation went up to about 15% in March.
Yeah.
And it meant, and the inflation was particularly in terms of oil, of fuel. So fuel prices have gone up, but also basic goods like flour, rice, things that are just your staple diet. Those things have increased. And with inflation, it's always the poor people who suffer the most because, they've got next to nothing to live on anyway. And when the prices of things increase for them, it makes just life so much harder.
Yeah, and also coming from an emerging economy like Sri Lanka, I can also say that for people like that, the ability to speak English opens up a new market for them, a new opportunity, because sometimes when your country is so poor, you cannot raise money selling to your own people.
No.
You cannot
No.
create better jobs or businesses just if your target market are Sri Lankans, and that's why when I do charity projects around the smaller parts, poorer parts of Indonesia, the ability to speak English, the ability to connect to an outside community, it will determine your income and your opportunities. We'll be back with more of Keith and Rotary Club Bathhaven after this.
Made locally in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
We're back with Brave Business Conversation, talking about some really brave projects in Sri Lanka, getting people out of the cycle of poverty. So we've got the problem, which is poverty, very low-income families, breaking their backs, picking tea leaves just to make an income, the need to learn English as a way to get out of that cycle. How did you set up this project, Keith?
In 2019, I was out in Sri Lanka from September to December, and I was working with Tea Leaf Trust. And because of my educational background, I was supporting them in mainly in terms of leadership and management. So I did a whole series of lesson observations across the 3 schools. I did some teacher training. I taught them I taught the senior teachers how to monitor the junior teachers. We looked at curriculum development and sort of basic aspects of how you would lead and manage and maintain high quality schools. And towards the end of my time there, I was interested in how we could take this forward, what we could do as a project. I was returning to the UK. I thought I would come back. The pandemic hit, so I didn't come back for nearly as soon as I thought I might do. But when I got back to the UK, we did set up a project. And towards the end of my time, we'd gone around visiting government schools. Because in Sri Lanka, it's mandatory to teach English in primary schools and in secondary schools. And the way it's set up, the government has just introduced government-appointed English teachers, and they've got some training, but it doesn't mean they can speak English at all. And as we went round the government schools with a great chap called Gobinath, who's leading our project out there now, I met some of the principals, I met some of the teachers, I saw some of the students, and they were very interested in having a programme where they could learn English, because Tea Leaf Trust itself has a 1-year diploma programme that is set up for young people, and they're mainly from 18 through to 22, 23, that sort of age group. We will then be targeting quite a different group, because we were targeting teachers who were already teaching English in schools. And ultimately, we ended up targeting a very specific group. Rather than target the government-appointed English teachers, we ended up targeting what we call the internally appointed English teachers. So the easiest way to explain that to you is, if, for example, if in secondary school, if you're a maths teacher, geography teacher, history teacher, as well as teaching your subject, because everybody has to learn English, the principal of the school may well say to you, you've got to teach 5 or 6 lessons of English a week. And you may not speak English at all. In fact, some of them don't.
Wow.
They have no knowledge of English at all. So they're still required to go in and take these 5 or 6 classes a week or a fortnight and teach them English. And it's obviously
So
it's
they're
a very
learning with the students.
they're
really.
learning with that. I mean,
So you're teaching
it's a
them
tough
how
ask.
to teach English. Is that
There were 2 aspects to the project, and we initially set up the project that we would try and hit 20 primary school teachers and 40 secondary school teachers running 6 months programs. And we set up the 2 levels of that. We were trying to basically improve their levels of English, and we're using something called sorry, the name escapes me. We're using specific tests. I'll remember for
No
next
worries.
time. But we were using specific tests, in speaking, listening, reading, writing that assessed their performance in every aspect of English. So on one level, we were trying to improve their actual English. Aptis tests, they're called. Comes to me now. Aptis tests in English, which were speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And then another level was to try to teach more interactively, more imaginative, more creatively.
Okay.
So we were trying to hit both. And I think what we have done is probably hit the English side more. We were scuppered a bit by the pandemic because we started off the project with face-to-face teaching, but once the pandemic hit, it had to go over to online teaching. But
Were
that
they
actually
used to it?
that actually proved a blessing, actually, in some ways, and maybe we'll come on to that next.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, there was this project in Papua that I think a past Rotary Club did in Indonesia, where the whole project was to buy an iPad and a charging station that was solar powered and put it in the middle of the village. And you watch as these curious children get access to it, and before you know it, they're learning English, they're learning computers, they're learning whatever. So it's sometimes, just about having people access. So I'm interested in when things go online and suddenly you've got to learn how Zoom works and you got to turn on some technology to get connection. I wonder if actually certain other things that of learning actually accelerate. Because sometimes the thing is, English is also my second language. You can tell by the way I speak. But at 10 years old, we moved to America. I had 2 years of English lessons in Indonesia before we moved as a family to America. I thought I knew how to speak English. No. Put me in the States, I still couldn't speak English. And the Brits will say, well, that's because they didn't speak English. They spoke American. I was probably learning the wrong language. But it does take practice, right?
Yeah. It certainly does. And what we've done is we've assessed the teachers. They go onto a 6-month programme, but the Aptis tests, which I couldn't remember before I can now, the Aptis tests are very important. They're a crucial part of that because their speaking, listening, reading and writing skills are measured at the start of the 6-month programme. Then they have the whole input of the lessons, plus conversation practice, and I'll come on to that a bit later on and tell you all about that as well. And then at the end of the 6-month programme, they take the same tests, and then obviously you can see how much they've progressed and developed over the 6 months. And everybody has. I mean, it's been extremely successful, the programme. And we thought we would hit 20 primary school teachers and 40 secondary. We're now into our third 6-month programme because we found we had enough money to run a third one. We thought initially we were only going to run 2 6-month programmes. And after the third one, the third one is currently going on, and I'll be able to see it when I go out there. I arrive on Easter Sunday. And we've got 27 primary school teachers we'll have hit out, and remember our target was 20, and 51 secondary teachers, and our target was 40. So we're well over target for that. So instead of 60 teachers, we'll have actually reached 78 teachers in those government schools in that area. And you can imagine the impact of that. You're not only just impacting those teachers, obviously, you're impacting all the students that they teach.
The 5-6 classes that they teach per week. How much money does it take to create a project like this? Do you count it per teacher? I mean, how much funding do you need to make this impact?
Well, I think we raised about 7 million Sri Lankan rupees, which is about 35 to 40,000 pounds
for the three
programs. And one of the reasons, because the pandemic hit, we were going to have a native English speaker trying to support the teaching, the delivery of the English, which is where the Tea Leaf Trust came in, because with the pandemic, we couldn't appoint that teacher. And in fact, that would have been quite expensive. And the reason we were able to run a third 6-month programme instead of just the first 2 was because of the savings the savings that we made there. And so we ended up appointing this guy called Gobinath, who runs the programme now. Basically, I help run it from the UK side of things, and a guy called Tim helps me because he runs the finance side. I don't like to get involved with the finance side, and he's brilliant with that, so he gets involved with the finance side of things. But I have regular team meetings with somebody from the central team, the central management team, usually Jasmine, sometimes Yadashini, who's actually the director of Tea Leaf Vision over in Sri Lanka. And I meet with them every 2 or 3 weeks, and we discuss what's happened, how the lessons are going, how various aspects of the project are going. We do discuss, financial elements. Do they need anything and that we can buy them to support the project? And Gobi will let us know how he's getting on.
So Gobi is a Sri Lankan who is now helping to run the programs there.
Yes, and I think I didn't sort of mention that before. That's a very key part of Tea Leaf Trust and Tea Leaf Vision, as what it's called actually out in Sri Lanka. That it's a grow your own principle. They don't have white people running the show because the whole point is that they
you
develop.
empower them.
You're empowering young people. You're developing, because that's the whole point of the project. You're empowering them to lead independent lives and to lead better lives.
When there needs to be less and less dependence on external help, right?
Yeah.
So when you're empowering people like Gobi to do it, you'll be surprised. You're actually kind of it's a double learning. They learn how to teach people how to teach English, but also they learn that leadership and management you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they have learned a lot from me, but I can honestly say I've learned so much from them as well. I mean, it's definitely reciprocal. It's not. I'm not the great white guy going out there to show them how to do things. There's an element of that in that I've got the experience of 30 odd years in the teaching profession, and so I've got things that I can input to them. But I've learnt so much as well from the 3 months I was out there last time, and I can't wait to go out again Easter Sunday and going out for another 3 months, because it teaches you a lot about life. It teaches you, when you're working with what's almost a third world country, and I'm not quite sure whether Sri Lanka.
No, we were trying to look it up.
We were trying to look it up, and we couldn't tell because Sri Lanka came out of third world, being a third world country, and it might have gone back in actually because of the state of the economy at the moment.
Sure.
But when you're out there in that sort of environment, especially for me, I mean, I was white, British, always brought up in this environment here. You learn a huge amount by seeing how other people live in a different country.
A couple of points. One of my first businesses in 2005 is an English school. And I think it's very good you didn't get a native speaker.
Yeah.
We were completely against native speakers for beginners, simply because you learn better. As someone who had learned English, for me, I learned better from someone who has learned English as a second language or a third or fourth. But it's like if I'm trying to teach English now, because English is now so natural for me, I do a really bad job doing this because I don't know why. It just sounds right. I don't know why. You just use this preposition instead of that one. You just pronounce it that way. But for someone who has learned it, I think you'll find they'll do a better job at explaining the logic, especially if they are also a native Sri Lankan, for instance. They'll relate their language to English and say, you see, this is the way we speak it here, but in English they speak it this way. Something a native speaker cannot do is explain from the perspective of the students how to do it. So I think it's a very good job. Plus, it also saves you a lot of money to put in other things. And bringing a native speaker later in the game, in the conversation, when they're more intermediate or advanced, is a good thing. But at beginner level, we used to stay away from hiring native speaker teachers because they were less effective in many ways, and they were just more expensive. And that's really amazing. We'll be back with Keith and talk about his projects, and let's talk a little bit more about the impact. Where are things now, and where do you see it moving forward, which is always exciting. We'll be back with more after this.
Made locally in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
Hey, welcome back to Brave Business Conversation. You've got impact, Keith, over there. Aside from money or fundraising, what do you actually need?
Money is always the greatest help, and if people want to make a donation to Tea Leaf Trust, you can just look up the Tea Leaf Trust online, and they'd be very grateful to receive any donations, especially at the moment because inflation is huge. Particularly because whatever you give at the moment, your money is worth a lot. Because you get a lot of Sri Lankan rupees at the moment for every pound that you give. The other thing that I would really appreciate, I'm just about to go out on Easter Saturday and arrive on Easter Sunday. If anyone has any second-hand laptops that they no longer need, I would be really grateful to receive a few of them. Obviously, I can't take a truckload out with me. I've only got my luggage, but I could take even as many as half a dozen maybe. And if you're in that position and you've got an old laptop that you could donate, my email address is kjledbury, Ledbury, @hotmail.com. It's quite a simple one. So do email me, and I'm very happy to come try and pick it up or give you an address where you can bring it to before I fly out. But there's not long because I fly out next Saturday.
Yeah, or if you'd like, just email studio@radiobath.com, ask for Cynthia, and give me your details, and I'll connect you directly to Keith if that's easier. studio@radiobath.com.
And the other plug, I can't leave without putting in a plug for Bathhaven Rotary Club. I've been a member for 7 years now. It's a great club to belong to. And if you want to get involved in projects like this, we do an awful lot of good work. It's a fun club, a lot of fun people that we enjoy spending time together. We fundraise and we serve our local and wider community as well. So if you're interested at all in Bathhaven Rotary Club, again, just look up Bathhaven Rotary Club on the website, Google it, and you'll find access to the website. So do come along to one of our meetings and
Yeah,
and
I
see
know
what
you're
we
doing
do.
some kind of fundraising in the club for the Ukraine even.
Great fundraising. We had a council meeting last night, and a guy called Ron's leading that, and he's doing a fantastic job. And it goes back to what I was saying about horses for courses, really. When you join Rotary, you join with unique skills. I couldn't do what Ron's doing. Ron is leading this fantastic project where he's leading a fundraising dinner that will take place with some Bath Rugby Club members, and they will have all sorts of things going on there, including
An
an
auction.
auction. That's right, an auction where we hope we will raise lots of money. All of that money is going towards Ukraine for obvious reasons. I think everybody will understand why, but we're hoping we get a great response to that. And everybody that comes to Rotary brings something different, which is what I like. I've got my own set of skills, and I try to make sure I use those. And as people come in, everybody's got different sets of skills, and it's really good that as a club we try to utilise everybody's individuality, really.
Yeah, well, we had Alison Patrick, the past president
Yeah.
of Rotary, a couple of months ago here, and she's also saying about how everybody just comes in with different strengths.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you get involved in projects like this, any interesting stories, any frustrating stories? Because I think sometimes when you are out there to do service, you have to realize that it doesn't work successfully the first time. Right? Have you got stories like that?
All sorts of things. The first thing that I could talk about is the frustration. We set up a conversation class, which has been conversation sessions. So the first 6-month program, we didn't have them. The second 6-month program, and this 6 months now, we've got conversation sessions where we've got a number of volunteers particularly within Rotary. So a lot of Bathhaven Club members have got involved with that, and they just give up 30 minutes of their time a week to have a chat with one of the Sri Lankan teachers who's on the 6-month program. And unbelievably, I've had people from Canada, Hong Kong, Australia, and Sri Lanka itself join in with that. So I've currently got 18 volunteers, but I've had 22 over the course of the program. And we've served about 40 teachers. I think 40 of the teachers have accessed that. But talking about frustrations, it's very difficult at the moment. The climate in Sri Lanka is a bit of a pain. So your internet connection's not always good. So you can arrange a meeting and it just doesn't happen because it's raining heavily and there's no... you just can't get through to anybody. And the other thing that is a real problem at the moment, of course, is the power cuts, because the government hasn't got enough money to pay for fuel. So they're cutting power for extended periods of time during the day. So,
and this is why volunteering builds character, isn't it?
I think, it's certainly. I think it builds patience. I think one of the things that you learn as well going to a country in Asia. I mean, I hadn't experienced Asia at all, and their concept of time, you probably realise, is quite different from ours. So
Yes.
tomorrow or soon or tomorrow are words that don't necessarily have the same meaning as
and
they
it's
do
not a
in
language barrier; it's a culture
No,
barrier.
it's not a language barrier at all. No.
There is a concept that says the closer you are to the equator, the less you have in terms of a sense of urgency. Because if you live in a four-season country, where there's winter and sometimes there's hard winter, you learn to plan.
Yeah.
You learn to plant things, harvest things at a certain time, and because if you're late, you starve, basically. And you'll see even in North Asia versus South Asia is closer to the equator, we have a different concept of time, Asians being the same. And I used to report to a vice president in Hong Kong, and I worked, and my career was Indonesia and Singapore. And he always comes, you Southeast Asians don't have a concept of time. You don't plan, you have no sense of urgency. And then, even if you go to Hong Kong, they walk faster. Their escalators go up faster because they're just more they're just more urgent about things, because if they don't plan, winter comes, that's it. And that's just winter in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I experienced that as a head teacher. I was running European projects through Comenius, and we experienced that very much as a North European, Southern European divide. And we'd arrange a meeting at 10
Well, it's
o'clock.
like Milan and Sicily.
Yes, we'd arrange a meeting. Say we'd meet maybe nine in the morning, and the UK and Finland and Germany would all be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, all ready to go. And then the guys from Spain or Italy would sort of come in about half an hour late, and they still want a coffee. They'd still want to start off with a coffee, because that's, and you just had to get used to it, because really it was just a different mindset.
Exactly.
And I think what I've learned is, which has been a really good point to learn, is that it's not right or wrong.
It's just different.
It's just different. And I think that's what's really important when you're in a different culture. Sometimes you just need to learn. You just need to chill and know. And we had this word. I shared a house with a girl from Holland whilst I was there, and we had this phrase. It's just Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So sometimes when things went wrong, or it wasn't quite how you expected, we'd just say, "Oh, it's just Sri Lanka," because that's what it was.
Then you can move on. We'll be back with more of Keith Ledbury and his project in Sri Lanka in the next hour after the news. Welcome back to Brave Business Conversation, still with Keith Ledbury from Rotary Bath Avon, talking about the Tea Leaf Trust project in Sri Lanka. So how many years has this been going on, and how has the club responded to it? You're laughing. It's like it's probably a few weeks.
I'm laughing because it isn't just a few weeks. I think that the problem has been COVID, of course, and the project was supposed to run for 12 months, 6 months training programs. And obviously there was a lead up to that where we prepared and planned for the project. And there might have been a bit of a follow-up as well. But basically, it's gone on for 2 years. We started this over 2 years ago, the planning and getting ready for it. And we were scuppered by COVID, so the start was delayed. And it's been very difficult. But, I mean...
You started this project in COVID, basically.
We started it in COVID. And,
okay.
I just have to pay tribute to everybody who's been involved with it, really, because... at both sides, here in the UK, our side of it, and particularly in Sri Lanka, where Tea Leaf Vision has been a wonderful team supporting this project. They really are the ones who delivered the project on the ground. And Jasmine, Arumagam and Gobinath have really delivered a fantastic project for Tea Leaf Vision, and I really need to pay tribute to them. But even, on this side... I've been leading it particularly with Tim Westbrook, who's been great with the financial side of things. But every single member of Rotary Club need to pay tribute to them, really, because everybody contributes financially. So when we set up an international project, we pay. There's about 40 people in the club, and each of those 40 people makes a contribution, and that contribution is then added to, as I said before, with match funding from the district, and then we're linked up with the French club in Tours and the German club in Mannheim. But I think that the Rotarians have really embraced this project. more than just giving a bit of money at the start to it. A couple of things that spring to mind particularly is the conversation class initiative I set up. We've had up to 10 of our club members, and we're not a huge club, we're only 40 members, and I think 8 to 10 of them have given up their time to have conversation classes with the Sri Lankan teachers, and I'm really grateful for that. And then I had this sort of brainwave in December that we'd have a Christmas appeal at Tea Leaf Vision, and I just thought we'd raise a bit of money for them. And it was incredible. We raised £2,500 as a Christmas appeal, which was sent out to them, and that equated to about 640 Sri Lankan rupees. And what that money was used for was to give a bonus, an end-of-year bonus, to the staff. There's about 40 staff that work for Tea Leaf Vision. And, an end-of-year bonus, if we had an end-of-year bonus, we might, it might be, and we'd get a couple of nice bottles of wine or something. Again, it's the difference in another country. Where there's poverty, that means that they'll buy rice, they'll buy cooking oil, they'll buy basic foods that they can't afford, and they'll stock up. So, humbled actually by the response that we got to that. It was just that people were so generous.
I think when I can't say it's a pronoun you all the time, but when I look at projects like this, whenever I'm always involved in these charity things, you always look at the person who goes to Australia, Sri Lanka, and does all the work and flies back after 3 weeks or 3 months doing this and that. And maybe people think that that's what you have to do to contribute. When actually, you can be on that Zoom call having that conversation with a teacher, helping them learn English conversation, or just giving money. And the joy for me moving to the UK has been knowing the power of the pound.
Yeah.
The power of the pound. I mean, Indonesian rupiah is apparently based on your conversion rate. Then Sri Lankan rupee, a couple of £1,000 sterling is millions over there. And not only will they buy rice and stock up, but it's probably that end of year bonus probably goes to helping feed their relatives. So now they've got a bit more food in the family that they can now extend it to their extended family, which is typically what happens.
That's a really, really important point, Cynthia, because what I failed to mention is another huge impact of the work of Tea Leaf Vision is the fact that the people they employ, a lot of them are the sole breadwinners in their families.
Sure.
And they're looking after, so often mums and dads, they're looking after brothers and sisters. I remember sitting in Nuwara School chatting to this guy who was about 20. He was an older one because they weren't normally up to 25, 26. I think he was 26, which was quite old for them. And I asked him what he wanted and what he was hoping for. Future dream was. Sadly, he didn't have a very good experience of it, and his father wasn't in the picture. But his ambition was to be able to earn enough money to be able to look after his mother. And I thought, what are we wanting in the West?
Yeah.
Are we
a yacht, a super yacht, helicopter here and there.
Are we very materialistic and we'd love a really nice car or a very nice house or a second home? I'm lucky I do have a second home, but for him to just say, well, actually, I just want to be able to earn enough so I can look after my mother in her old age. And it's things like that that really stick in your mind, and it brings it home to you what we're all about, really, what this is all about.
Exactly. And the concept of family in countries like that, for many Western civilization, a family is basically parents and however many kids you have and maybe a few cousins. But in certain parts of the world, family means your cousin's cousin and your in-laws and everything like that. And people spend a lifetime taking care of their definition of family, which is actually quite a wide group of people. We'll be back with more conversations, with more brave conversations with this brave project in the tea leaf troughs in Sri Lanka after this. Welcome back to Brave Business Conversations, still with Keith from Rotary Bath Avon. You're going back there on Easter Sunday.
Yes, I fly out Easter Saturday and I arrive in Colombo on Easter Sunday. And my main purpose for going back is to monitor and evaluate the whole of this programme. So hopefully, I know Gobi's already arranged for me to visit some schools, to see some principals, to meet with some of the teachers who've taken the programme, and hopefully to speak to their students as well.
So, what are you monitoring?
monitoring the impact. I mean, obviously, wherever you're spending money for Rotary, you've got to show that there's an impact for that. You can't just spend money willy-nilly, obviously. You've got to make sure that it's serving a really useful purpose. So my job really is to show and to demonstrate, really, that this has made a big difference within the schools there, so that I'll be talking to the teachers about the impact it's made on their level of teaching, on their ability to teach English in the government schools, talk to the principals about things that they've noticed, and hopefully be able to talk to the students about how English lessons have changed a little bit as well, because of the instruction that their teachers have had over this 6-month programme.
And are there specific KPIs or criteria that you have to go back to Rotary on, or number of students impacted?
The students, at one point we thought there might be. It's really hard to do that. I mean, at one point we did add it up, and we thought there might be as many 30,000 plus students impacted, because you can imagine we've hit. I think, what did I say? 78 teachers, I think, have been on the programme, and if each of those teachers is impacting on 200 or 300 students in their schools, it soon adds up. But it's very hard to gauge. It's hard to be. You've got to think of quantity and quality. So I'm going to try to do both. I mean, obviously, I'll look at quantity, how many teachers we've trained, how many classes that's influenced in terms of numbers. But I'll also be wanting to look at quality and see how much the teachers really feel this has impacted on them. They've gone on a course of 6 months. We'll be able to show the development of those teachers in terms of their English, because they'll have sat the aptis tests, and we'll know how they scored at the start and at the end of the 6-month programme. And we've already got the results from the first 2 6-month programmes, and they've done great. The improvement in their English has been phenomenal, so that's already one good measure of success that we've already got in the bag, as it were. But going out there, I've got to write, obviously, a final report for the project as well, so I'll be sort of planning towards that. But then, and that's really where the link is with TLEaf Vision, because we've employed Gobi from TLEaf Vision to do all the training. But it won't take me 3 months to do that, so I will be working with TLEaf Vision themselves again, like I did before, and I've got a long list here of things that they want me to do. They want me to train the principals in terms of time management, reporting back, report writing, diversity training. They want me to train the teachers. I've got to do some teacher training when I'm out there, some teacher trainers training.
Busy trip.
Yeah, they want me to do some volunteer training.
Amazing.
They want me to basic English programme, life skills, and even do a little bit of counselling training.
That's amazing.
Because counselling is quite important for the work that they do. So I will be a busy bee. I won't be sitting back on my laurels whilst I'm out there.
Yeah. Well, also, I think give it a few years, you'll see the impact of how many of them become well employed, whether it is just an admin work in a hotel or a chambermaid or whatever, but a job placement based on their level of English would be an interesting thing to measure when they're old enough to be measured in that way. But I love the accountability. So one thing I do know about Rotary Club is that when they give money, they do want some level of results or accountability back, which makes donators and contributors feel a bit better.
Yeah. They've got to know the security of if they're donating money for a cause, that cause is seeing proper results. I mean, in terms of the impact we're having through this programme, it will be with the youngsters that are in the government schools. But in terms of TLEaf Trust and TLEaf Vision out there itself, their impact has already been measured in that they're working with the 18 to 23, 24-year-olds generally, and 80% of them get employment.
Oh, amazing.
Afterwards. And they, in the past 14 years, they've helped nearly 40,000 young people, and 80% of those have gained employment. And they feel that what you mentioned before about the knock-on effect of the family, because those 40,000 people that have been helped, the knock-on effect has been that they've helped about 350,000 people in terms of their extended families.
Well done.
So it has a huge impact. It's definitely something. It's a passion for me. I mean, I'm going back out now for 3 months, but my intention, if I can, as long as my health and my money sustains me, I'm hoping to go out every year for at least 2 months, every single year to support the work of Tealy Vision.
It must give you a certain level of fulfillment. I know it's a silly question, but how do you feel doing that? You're using your own money, you're using your time, and we know that your wife's not going with you, and so it's separation from your family as well. You're sacrificing quite a lot.
Well, she's sacrificing as well. So I'm very grateful to her that she lets me do this.
But it must give you some kind of buzz or something.
There's definitely a sense of satisfaction that you feel you're doing something. But I think it's, like I said before, I think I gain so much from this myself. I mean, hopefully I'm giving a lot, and I'm giving expertise, and I'm helping as much as I can, but I do get an awful lot back in terms of there's a sort of an intrinsic reward, I think, in terms of feeling that you're benefiting people that really need support and help.
Well done. Well done with all the work, then. We'll be back with more closing remarks from Keith and Rotary Bathhaven. Welcome back to Brave Business Conversations. Final segment, Ledbury, representing Rotary Bathhaven and the Tea Leaf Trust Project in Sri Lanka. Keith, final words from you. What do you want us to think about or leave us with?
Well, first of all, Cynthia, I have to say thank you to you for giving me the opportunity to come and Bathhaven Rotary Club. And it's been a pleasure. I've really, really enjoyed it, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm here really to promote Bathhaven Rotary Club and to promote Tealy Vision. So final plugs for them. I mean, and certainly in terms of Bathhaven Rotary Club, we are running a fantastic project, international project out in Sri Lanka, and I'm very grateful for all the support that I've received over the past 2 years to be able to deliver that project. So thank you to all the Rotarians. And if you're thinking, Rotary might be something I could be interested in, do have a look at the Bathhaven Rotary Club website. Just put Google Bathhaven Rotary Club and you'll find us. And come along to a meeting and see if it's something that you feel you could get involved in. In terms of Tealy Vision, there are lots of ways you could help. Certainly, they're able to take volunteers again now. They weren't for a long time because of the pandemic. So if you want to give, you can give to the Tea Leaf Trust, and again, you can Google that and find that on the website. If you've got an old laptop that you can give to me to take out this time round, I'd be very again. I'll give you my email address, which is kjledbury, ledbury @hotmail.com.
Or you can just email studio@radio and ask for Cynthia, and I'll connect you. Do you only take laptops, or is it mobile phones as well as iPads?
It's a question of how much I can physically take out in my. I've got so much I'm taking out already. You find that you take out loads and then you come back with very little. You're it's much easier coming back.
It's the magic of traveling.
Yeah. Much easier
form of communication technology. Would be welcome,
but particularly really supportive, really helpful.
Okay.
And I think that's it. But do consider both Bathhaven Rotary Club and Tealy Vision, and if you come along to a meeting or give, do have a look on the website and find out a bit more information about both.
Yeah, and I think the realization that you don't need there in Sri Lanka to help out.
Definitely not.
You can do it from here by talking to teachers, and the amount of skills that you already have. You don't need to be a teacher to help out. By speaking English, you can help out by contributing maybe some skills that you already have. So lots of people want to volunteer, but sometimes these charities, people might feel intimidated. It's like, I can't do this, or I can't go out to Sri Lanka to help out. Just talk to Keith. There's so many ways you probably can help out just by being in your home.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the work that you do. I love the accountability that Rotary puts on all the funds that it gives charity projects. And again, we were just talking during the break, the heart of the Rotary Club in Bathhaven is, it's just amazing. I know some of the people there, and it's lovely interacting with them.
It's great. I've been a member 7 years now, and I've never enjoyed my 7 years so far, so long may it continue.
All right. We'll be back with more Brave Business Conversations after this.
This is Radio Bath.